And we are here with the Bond Report. I am with John and Susan. They are very wise people. And today they're going to share their words of wisdom with me. So I'd like to start with you, Susan. And you tell me if there was any modern day invention that exists today that you did not think was possible when you were in your 20s.
Well, I was not expecting pictures of or visuals of
You mean like television?
like television, like radio, like these various curling lights.
Okay, but weren't you on a television show on the Christophers when you were younger?
Yes, I was actually.
Did you work in front of the camera or behind the camera?
I worked in front of the camera, and I talked about a variety of things, which just brought me right to the beginning of the.
You mean like when you wanted to be a teacher?
When
or?
I wanted to, I'm sorry, I really appreciate your helping me out. When I wanted to be a teacher, when I wanted to work with children, when I wanted to be working with kids and really thinking hard,
Mm-hmm.
I wanted to learn well.
No,
And that's what I was thinking about.
And you did that. What about you, John? Do you think that there was a modern day invention that you did not think was possible when you were in your 20s?
Well, I didn't imagine there would be the convenience of communication that we have through computers and the iPhone. For example, we can speak with picture and sound with people halfway around the world, virtually simultaneously. That was unanticipated, and it was stuff of science fiction.
So how do you think that that has impacted the ability to communicate with people around the world? How has that impacted the social structure of society?
It's the double-edged sword. It makes communication very much easier, but the ease causes an increase in volume so that we have so much data that it's hard to know what to remember. And we have masses of terabytes of data, and historians in the future will have a tough time sifting through. In a sense, the lack of easy communication made our communications more important, each one, and so our history was made easier to recognize and to evaluate.
You mean like running to the mailbox to see if you get a letter by the postman as opposed to getting another text? Because
Right.
people get lots of texts every day.
A zillion texts.
But back then, you may not get a letter every day.
That is
and-
correct. So
and-
every letter was meaningful, and in fact, that brings up the idea that we have lost the art of communicating one-to-one through letters and words and sentences that we craft.
And how do you think younger generations could learn to communicate better, whether it's in person or by writing letters of sharing their feelings?
Well, you're answering your own question. You write
No,
letters,
it's a real question. It's a real question.
they communicate.
How can young people who are used to texting with emojis, how can they learn the art of communicating?
Well, one step might be to have them read. Actually, the value of a book.
Mm-hmm.
Today's libraries have become digitized, which is to make ordinary handheld books less accessible, and that people will lose the emotional experience of sitting in a soft chair in the evening and opening up a book and page by page being absorbed in either a novel or a story or information given at leisure from one person talking to another, the author talking to the reader. That art is lost.
Well, I think that's really interesting. Can I ask you, why do you think little kids want to hear the same story read to them at bedtime by their parents?
Well, I think one of the reasons, and I'll give you just a reason that I feel.
Yeah, this is all your
And
opinion.
that is when you're falling asleep as a little child,
Mm-hmm.
and that your parents are holding your hand and singing maybe a little song to you as you fall asleep, and murmur or sing a little pet sound.
Mm-hmm.
I think that those are wonderful episodes of magic in the sense that it re- relates to individuals and helps them with making a beautiful song.
So you think that little kids enjoy hearing the same bedtime story because it's magical for them?
Not magical, but I think it's uh, um,
Why do they like the repetition, do you think?
well, they like the repetition because it makes children feel happy and
Well,
sleepy and joyful, and they just make the people make your children feel happy and peaceful and joyful
And safe?
and safe. Exactly.
Okay, so what do you think as far as the technology? Has technology robbed people of anything? I mean, you mentioned the art of communication. Is there anything else that you think that it may have deprived people? Have they become lazy?
Not lazy. It's what we have been robbed of is the art and skill of one-to-one interpersonal relationship.
So do you think
Texts don't have the same meaning. You don't save text in a frame
that's
and
true?
think back at it. You don't look back at it 10 and 20 years later the way you might a letter from a grandparent to a grandchild.
Mm-hmm.
So we've lost that one-to-one ability to relate, and that's indicated by today's statistics seeming to show that one of the dangers of our society is loneliness. Something
Oh.
that has never come up before, but some governments, Scandinavian, actually have departments in the government of fighting loneliness.
Well, do you think it's because with more technology and the ease of, say, communicating something with a pictured emoji, that the recipient is not viewed with the same level of respect? And that's why, even in dating situations, people break up by text. They just send a text saying, hey, it's over. And that's it. And they don't feel any consequence from that.
Well, that's just another example of not having a one-to-one communication pipeline between two individuals. You send a text out and it's very impersonal,
Mm-hmm.
and it can reach 100 people on a group chat or one person, and it can be meaningful. But the meaning tends to get lost because you don't have, again, the craftsmanship of a letter that's handwritten.
So do you think that relationships
Suffer.
today, whether it's professional relationships or even just personal relationships, because
Both.
the value of the time is not respected? So that potential employee is not respected. So we'll just dismiss you when we feel like it. That potential boyfriend is not respected. So that person gets dismissed.
Well, the lack of communication, you're just citing several examples. But on the other hand, it's nothing new. There was a book in the late 50s called The Lonely Crowd by David Reisman.
Mm-hmm.
And it was exactly the point that in a city like New York, you have millions of people shoulder to shoulder walking in the streets, and they are feeling very isolated and alone nonetheless. So that was existing even then, but technology has made that problem much, much worse.
So what is the resolution? How would younger generations resolve it? Do they just make arrangements to meet in person more, or?
Well, first you have to identify it as a problem, and I think it is being identified when, as I said, you had actual official governmental offices in places fighting loneliness,
Mm-hmm.
and we have to have social institutions and mechanisms for fighting the loneliness. So group meetings or social centers are important,
Mm-hmm.
and this is also existing, but on a very small level. For example, nighttime basketball
Mm-hmm.
designed to keep juvenile delinquents off the streets is just one format of that, just one form of the overall strategy to have people meet one-to-one in a collaborative or common effort.
Like a sports game, like a
Sports
sports
is one
game,
such
or
effort.
some
Right.
craft, or singing in the church
Right.
choir, or something to keep you
Right.
busy and with other people.
And to show there is such a need, Facebook and other social media seem to have special interest groups.
Uh-huh.
People interested in weaving, people interested in ham radio and so on. So there is the urge to get together on a one-to-one basis, and electronic social media can help, but there still is nothing like face-to-face meetings.
So do you think that that's really the skill that's disappeared as technology has improved in society, is the inability to connect?
Well, it hasn't
One-on-one.
disappeared, as I mentioned. It exists in electronic form, for
Mhm.
one thing, but it has certainly been diminished in intensity.
And what do you think, has there been anything else that has been diminished by the advancements of technology besides interpersonal relationships? Have we lost a skill?
Well,
don't think so.
related to that sense of community, where people in certain countries and cultures are
Mhm.
more what is called self-reliant or independent, which is sometimes a mask for being selfish and insensitive.
And could you elaborate
Well,
on
you
that?
have, for example, if somebody is starving, your neighbor is starving, you say, well, he brought it on himself, not my problem.
Ah,
Or you could say, I am my brother's keeper, and I'll see how I can help.
I
Two
see.
different attitudes.
And do you think society fares better when everybody sort of pitches in, like the neighborhood block that decides to help rebuild?
Well, like anything else, it's a matter of balance. You want to take interest in your neighbor's welfare, but you don't want to be a big nosy butt. So,
I can understand that you don't want to be too nosy. You want your
Yeah.
own privacy.
so you have to know whether to draw the line. It's a tough call. And to be independent has its advantages because you tend to take risks, but at the same time you can overdo it and ignore the legitimate needs of others. Education of your neighbor's children. Say, why should I pay for their education? That kind of thing.
Oh,
So
we
in
mean with
both
taxes,
cases,
not that
yes,
you.
in both cases you can overdo it. It's not purely you must be community minded or you must be independently minded. You have to know how to balance.
Are there any technologies that you wish existed, something that doesn't exist now, but that you think would be a really good idea?
I would like to be invisible and fly around the place.
Oh, that's usually people pick
Yes,
one or the other, and I see you've picked both.
right.
They either want to fly or be invisible, and you want to be an invisible flying person.
Well, the reason is mathematical.
Okay.
One impossibility plus another impossibility does not equal two impossibilities. It's still one impossibility.
That is
So that's
true.
it.
That is true. Okay. Do you have any other parting words? In that case, I want to thank you, John and Susan, for being some good wise guys on the
Yes.
Bond Report. And we'll end it there. See you next time.